So the author of Solo Leveling apologized. Now, it's not that often that you hear an author come out and say something as far as apologetic towards the stuff that they wrote in the story, because usually an author should stand by what they've done. Unless they genuinely feel like they did something that they feel, merits an apology, then of course, yeah, if you feel that way, then go for it and, apologize. And it came to my attention that the author of Solo Leveling apologized about something that went on in the story that he felt he could have done better, and also he didn't want any confusion to happen or for anybody to think that he thinks a certain way or that he looks down on people. Like, this was a very interesting and I would argue heartfelt apology, and I felt like it was something that we needed to talk about. And before we continue, hit that subscribe button and that bell so you get notified on all my videos. You want the news, I got you covered. Hit them buttons. So Solo Leveling is a very interesting work. It's one of the very few series that, despite not originating in Japan, so to speak, ultimately broke out into a global phenomenon, including in Japan as well. Because Solo Leveling's origins is originally from Korea. It's a manhwa. It's not a manga, which, even though they all mean basically the same stuff, they all just mean comic in their native languages. Ultimately, the word manga is normally associated, of course, with Japanese comics, comic books, American, and manhwa is usually for Korean comics. And Solo Leveling is just that. It was based in Korea, it was made in Korea, the author is from Korea. So some would argue that it is essentially an anomaly, because even though they've tried many a different times with a few different series to get a push going and see if other series outside of Japan, like again in Korea with manhwa and webtoons, could actually make a splash, ultimately Solo Leveling seems to be the only one that actually made it happen. And that's not to slight any of the other series, because series like Gata High School seems really good. Tower of God season 1 at the very least, I enjoyed it for what it was worth, outside of, well, we're not going to talk about that one character. You know what I'm talking about. I think there was a few other series as well that got anime adaptations via Crunchyroll that ultimately, they were pretty good stuff, but they didn't really stick and they didn't really tap into the mainstream conscious, so to speak, as far as, well, they just didn't obtain that level of mainstream success that one would hope for in order to again become something that is a staple and stays around for a while. Now that I think about it, Solo Leveling was one of the last of the bunch that came through and actually was like, no, this is a different story, fam. We're gonna make it happen this time around. And of course, season 1 was a massive hit. Season 2 was even bigger. Solo Leveling just did what no other series outside of Japan has been able to do, and that's really take the anime world by storm, despite not originating in its native, country or whatnot. Like, it came from Korea and stood by it. And what some might not know, because there were some changes to the anime from the actual source material, as far as Solo Leveling had a lot of things in the story that were mapped out as far as okay, this is this region, this is that region. I remember even before it came out, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it that, oh, this might have to be changed, oh, that might have to be changed, simply because there was a lot of things about geography in there, and ultimately sometimes some people get offended by things, because obviously as a work that is from Korea, the author is going to ideally, if they're proud of their nationality and proud of their home origin, which the author clearly is going to put that nation on their back with their works and ultimately propel it to the top and give it the most grandiose look possible. Which again, I'm not going to fault anybody for doing that. Whatever you rep, whatever nation, whatever nationality, whatever you're proud of, if you're gonna rep it to the fullest, right? So regarding this apology, before we actually get into it, I just want to say that I understand to a certain degree when you're coming up with something, when you're doing something and you want to show just how proud you are of your heritage, like, yeah, do that. However, the author felt a slight amount of guilt because of certain aspects of the story that he felt downplayed other nations. Because again, in the original source material, it really stresses on, okay, this is the Japanese nation, this is the Korean nation. Like, it really emphasizes that because it's a core element of the original source material that the anime might mention here or there, but for the most part, the anime doesn't really focus too much on those aspects. It's just really giving you the story and the characters, which they probably did the right thing in hindsight, because look at what happened even as far as the source material goes, where the author came out and apologized. And you're probably like, okay, you said that he apologized like 50 million times. What did he apologize about? Well, here we go. The author of Solo Leveling has spoken out to clarify misunderstandings surrounding the series, particularly claims that it portrays Japan in a negative light. He explained that Solo Leveling is a work of fiction and that he never expected it to be labeled anti-Japanese, either in Korea or in Japan. While writing the story, he did consider that portraying certain countries as antagonists could cause a high level of civic awareness and were generally more tolerant of fictional portrayals. The author emphasized that he does not hate or look down on any country. This applies equally to the protagonist and all characters in the story. There was never any political or nationalistic intent behind their portrayals. I will throw the argument again that I do feel like, yeah, there was probably just a bit of national pride as far as his aspect goes, again, being based in Korea, and there was nothing wrong with that. Like, you're not gonna put all of these pieces in play into the story without having some type of feeling about it. He also addressed criticism surrounding Goto Ryuji, Japan's strongest hunter in the series. In hindsight, he regrets not making the character stronger or more imposing. He explained that if he had known how popular solo leveling would become in Japan, he would have handled Goto's role differently. While he originally intended Goto to feel powerful, the story ultimately emphasized the strength of the enemies instead. So essentially, he is apologizing for downplaying Japan and what they brought to the table and what they probably should have done and what he probably wish he would have done with them opposed to how it ultimately played out. Because as far as the story goes, that character really wasn't emphasized to be as strong as probably he could have been or should have been, and ultimately people in Japan took offense to that. A lot of people were looking at it like, if he's representing Japan, how are you going to downplay him like that when ultimately, you know, that's a big piece of the story, on top of the fact that, again, solo leveling became a global phenomenon, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was adapted as an anime, which, you know, in Japan. And that's not to take away from, of course, its Korean origins, but that's just a fact that Japan definitely helped to propel this thing. If it don't go the route of, you know, getting adapted into an anime, which is, again, the Japanese formula, not saying that all animation is Japanese formula, I'm being very clear about it. Solo leveling was marketed and promoted as an anime, as essentially like, hey, look, it's one of the Japanese guys, bro. And that helped for it to ultimately become what it became, which is, again, a smash success. So yeah, people were going to take offense to it, but at the same time, if the author's intent wasn't necessarily like, yo, I'm gonna shit on Japan with this thing, it was more so like, yo, I'm writing some stuff, and that's just kind of how it played out, then that's understandable. You gotta look at it from his point of view as well, that again, at the time when he created this thing, you're not understanding sometimes when you're making something, when you're in creator mode, where your works can go. He probably was creating this thing and just hoping that at the very least he could get, you know, published for a couple volumes. He didn't probably understand that, whoa, this is going to become what it became, and admired and loved and appreciated by so many. It's almost as if the work came to life in and of itself. And if the author didn't understand that to begin with, how can you really fault him? And honestly, I gotta respect that he actually came out and did this. He didn't have to say anything. He could have just been quiet and been like, you know what? It don't matter. Solo leveling already made it. We're heading towards a film and possibly season 3 within the next few years. Like, he could have just been quiet and not really cared and just kept it moving. The fact that he actually came out and expressed, you know, a bit of, I don't want to say guilt or regret, but ultimately an apologetic feel, and it seems like it came genuine from the heart, and I gotta respect it. Maybe from his viewpoint in this series, yeah, Japan probably wasn't going to be the strongest per se, because again, he was thinking from a different perspective, from a different location. But when it came time to it and the story came to life, Japan showcased that, yo dog, we made this series pop too. Like, you can't neglect us and you can't downplay us. So yeah, it's definitely something very interesting. Curious what you guys think. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like he needed to apologize for this thing? The fact that Japan was downplayed in the story per se, that it didn't really have a grand standing view. But that's all I have for this one. I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Peace in.